you have been talking in the way that pornography does not have to be in a marriage. And I think that idea in itself can be revolutionary for a lot of women. They get told, and this is part of the lies, oh, it's normal, everybody does it. That was something apparently that was one of the things you had been told, oh, it's really not a big deal. And then that can change into, well, is a porn-free marriage possible? I'm Dr. Carol, and we're asking that question today. Porn is a huge relationship destroyer. It affects both men and women. Today, we are talking to the wives whose marriages are imploding because of porn. Maybe you suspect that something is just not quite right. You may not know for sure what it is, but something in your gut is telling you, something's going on with my husband. Maybe you know that porn is going on and you're not sure what to do about it. You're devastated, you feel betrayed, you feel crazy, you feel like maybe it's your fault, like maybe if you were more sexy, this wouldn't be a problem for your husband. All of those are lies. This is a huge problem even in the Christian church. Some statistics say up to 80% or more of men admit to using porn with some regularity. Certainly women do too. But again, today we're talking to the wives whose marriages are imploding because of this problem. My guest on the program is Rosie Makinney. She knows from personal experience what this journey is like. Rosie is an author, a speaker, and now the leader of Fight for Love Ministries, helping women take their marriages back from porn. This conversation will empower you. You are not powerless. You do not have to just sit back and take it. So here is my conversation with Rosie Makinney. Rosie Makinney, what a delight. Thank you for being here and being willing to share your heart, your story, and your message. It is such a delight.
Thank you for the invitation, Carol. It's lovely to be here with you.
Now, we are going to be talking about something I know a lot of women and, frankly, a lot of couples who may be listening to us or watching us today are struggling with. And you have done a great deal of research. I am so impressed by seeing some of your work in the research you have done around pornography and relationships, the impact on the brain, the impact on marriages. But before we get into a little bit of that, I would like you to share a little bit about what I think may be your biggest claim to credibility, and that is you have walked this journey in your own marriage. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. Well, actually, Carol, I have walked this twice because I couldn't get enough the first time. Thought I'd go round again. No. So prior to becoming a Christian, I was in a long-term relationship with an unrepentant porn addict. And I tried everything to get this out of the relationship. I tried competing, I tried ignoring, I tried forgiving, I tried, everything I could think of, every piece of advice I heard to get this out of the relationship, and nothing worked. This was my problem. It wasn't a problem. And eventually that all fell apart and it was very painful. So fast forward, I then become a Christian. And I meet this lovely guy who tells me that he's struggled in the past, but he's already done some recovery. He doesn't want it. He's got this sorted. It's not going to be an issue. So I'm like, yes, I've got one of the good guys, and we get married. But very soon, like honeymoon soon, it was apparent that this was still impacting him, because pornography addiction doesn't just affect things inside the bedroom, it affects things outside. It affects how they treat you and their attitude and things. And I could see some of the same red flags. And I think I had what in retrospect was like a PTSD reaction. Like, I can't do this again. I've done this. I know where this goes. Nothing I do is going to help. And I just panicked and I'm like, you need to get help or we can't move forward. So we're getting help or that's it, because I cannot do this again, which was an incredibly hard thing to do. And I think unless I'd had that prior experience, there is no way I would have had call it strength or call it desperation. I just knew that there was no way I was going to repeat this again. Something had to change. Unfortunately, he was ready. He'd lost a previous marriage to this, and he was ready to really dive into doing whatever was necessary. So we did, and that was our story. And he did, work very hard and kick this. I mean, he tried everything, and I think it's important for people to hear that just because you've tried something and it doesn't work doesn't mean it's never going to work. He'd spent, I would say, $20,000 on different things, over his lifetime to kick this. He tried everything he could possibly think of, apart from the one thing that actually does make a difference, which is being 100% rigorously honest, past, present, going forward, under the supervision of someone who knew what they were doing. Yeah. So he was in his recovery program. I had to sort of form my own recovery program. I was seeing a therapist, but there was no support group. And I'm like, how come you go to group? And how come you come home feeling better? And I'm sitting here alone, just feeling miserable. So I sent him to his group with little notes I'd written saying, please give this to your wives, that said, if you're feeling like me, perhaps, you'd like to get together and we could just support each other. And so we did. And that's how sort of my whole journey of helping people began. Just like there was a need and I needed to fill it, really.
Yes. So that was how it led to the beginning of Fight for Love Ministries.
Yeah.
Today. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Although I didn't know it at the time, it was just survival. It was like, sure, I need other people around me because I feel like I'm living in a dream world. Mm-hmm. And the only time when it felt like I wasn't living in a dream world was when I had those recovery gals around me. Yes. And we could sit together and be honest about what was actually going on and how we really felt, because nobody else understood. Even well-meaning friends and families, they don't get it. They don't understand it. They've got their own concerns and anxiety about what's going on. So then you have to manage their expectations and their fears on top of it. So it's just, there are so many confusing, mixed, shameful, unhelpful messages out there. So it's only within the recovery community that you start to feel sane and the fog starts to clear and you feel heard and you feel validated. And I'm not crazy. Okay, he's not crazy. The problem is pornography, and there is something we can do. And there are people further up the path who are promising me that it is possible to get better. So I'm just clinging on to their assurances that if we follow this path, then we will get there. Not guaranteeing that the relationship will survive. However, we will both be in a better place.
I love that picture of hope. And I also love how you've already, just in telling your story briefly like that, have illustrated some of the lies. The lie that it's not a big deal. And I just want to maybe ask you to comment on that. You mentioned that pornography doesn't only impact how your husband treated you in the bedroom, but it's all of the relationship. Just validate a little bit for other women who may be feeling that. What does that look like? Yeah,
well, here's the thing. Even women who don't actually know that their husbands are, secretly watching pornography, it's hidden from them, they've managed to be completely deceived about that, they know something's up. They're like, something is eating him. He is more critical. He is more resentful. He is more withdrawn. He is detached. Nothing seems to give him the joy it once did. Like his hobbies don't interest him. He's not finding any joy in the children. He's just lost his zest for life. He just seems preoccupied, and so often we turn that inwards and go, well, it must be me. Mm-hmm. And so then we try and fix ourselves, and we try and, up our game in all responses, even though it's coming from a place of desperation and hurt rather than actually genuinely wanting to connect and, love on that person. It's more this sort of, what is going wrong? Yeah. So we can feel it, and they have proven, that's what I loved about doing the research, Carol, is that all these scientific studies now prove what we know in our gut.
Yes.
So they prove that actually the more pornography they have to watch, the more they have to think about it to maintain their arousal when they're with us. They've proven that it actually affects how they view our appearance, our sexual performance, our just general relationship happiness. They've proven that. So once we start to understand that this isn't because we have somehow fallen short, it's because this lens of pornography has crept into their eye, that they're now seeing everything differently. And it's not a case of, well, we should just compete with it, because that's disregarding the fact that there's now this shard, this pornographic lens in his eye. So even if you did manage to emulate or look like what was going on in those videos, he's going to be viewing you through that lens. And that's not what you want. You want the lens out of his eye, and you want him to view you how he once did, or possibly how he never has done, but how he could if that lens was missing. Because, you know, as well as I do, many of these guys got hooked when they were really young. And so
Yes.
they've never known what it's like.
Exactly. And thanks for acknowledging that. This is not so much an indictment as a description of reality. This isn't so much, although it is sinful, this isn't so much saying you're sinning as you need some help, that something happened to you, and we need to work on this.
Yeah.
You've also already kind of debunked the lie that having more sex will fix this, or the person who may not be married and say, if I just get married, that will mean my struggle with pornography won't be there. It different categories.
Totally. But so many of us believe that lie. It is so prevalent. I think the statistic was something like 76% of wives believe at some point that they are responsible. And that's just devastating. And it's not true. It's really not true. We have porn stars who have come forward and said, you know, I can't stop my partner from looking at it. And I'm the person in the films. It is not to do with you. You are you're real. That's your sin. You are a real person, and you are one person.
Yes. You have been talking in a way that pornography does not have to be in a marriage. And I think that idea in itself can be revolutionary for a lot of women. They get told, and this is part of the lies, oh, it's normal, everybody does it. That was something apparently that was one of the things you had been told, oh, it's really not a big deal. And then that can change into, well, it's really hopeless. I mean, this is just the way it's going to be. And you are saying no. Talk about your belief that you do not have to allow porn in your marriage.
You absolutely don't. A porn-free marriage is possible. I am living proof that ladies in my community, many of them are living proof. It does not have to be an inevitable part of your relationship just because he has never been able to cope without it before. Doesn't mean that there isn't hope in the future. And unfortunately, we have a whole generation now that is being groomed to accept and expect pornographic type sex and pornographic ideology. And unless we start sorting out our marriages, there is no hope for the next generation. We have a rapidly diminishing window of opportunity to actually start speaking truth and light to people and say, this does not have to be your path. And I feel it's horribly devaluing and emasculating to guys to say they are just these carnal beasts who need to, meet this urge. It's this primal need. This is, it's just not true. They are not going to explode. You do not die if you don't.
Thank you for saying that. Exactly. For the women, the wives who may be watching right now, you are a daughter of the King, and for the guys, you are a son of the King. You are not just a carnal beast. Thank you.
Yeah. And we need to tell, our children, but we can't really tell our children with any authority until we've actually tackled this beast within our own relationship. And even though it's tremendously scary to draw that firm line in the sand, and, say we are not going to have pornography in our marriage. We are going to get help. We are going to kick this. Um, even though it's hard to make waves in your marriage, especially if you've got a husband who is pushing back,
Yeah.
maybe because he's not very nice, but maybe just because his brain has been so hijacked by this, he can't even see straight. And I think that's probably more the case in more cases.
Yeah.
That their brains are literally hijacked. So even if you can't do it in your own strength for your own relationship, because it's hard to get pushback. This is a really vulnerable thing that you're doing. But if you can think about your children, you go, okay. And then Mama Bear comes out and you're like, okay, I now have the strength to stop this generational curse. I want a better future for my children. And I do not want my daughters growing up in relationships. I do not want my daughters doing this. And I certainly don't want my sons being hooked into this.
Yeah. In Fight for Love, your book and your ministry, Fight for Love Ministries, both, you are dedicated to giving women, empowering women with the facts and the faith to fight this. What does that look like? I know some Christian women may have internalized the message that if you're nicer, if you submit, if you have more sex, that's going to, fix him. We've kind of debunked that. On the other side, micromanaging, controlling, trying to wrestle him into not going to porn, that doesn't work either. So what does fighting for love look like?
Great question. I think it helps to reframe it in terms of what you're actually dealing with. You're dealing with a process addiction. You're dealing with, in essence, this demonic
Good.
Asherah pole that's in your relationship.
Yes.
And if your husband was sneaking downstairs and snorting coke, you wouldn't lie there going, well, I'm just going to pray for him. You wouldn't go, I'm going to go downstairs and join him.
Right.
You wouldn't say, okay, I'm going to lie down and pretend to be the coke.
Yeah.
You would go, we're not doing this. This is completely frying your brain. It is messing up our relationship. It's traumatizing me. It's affecting the kids. We're going to stop this. And if you can't actually stop this, when I say, I need you to stop this, we're going to get help. And if you still refuse to get help, I'm going to get help, because in terms of our relationship, there is a huge hole in the boat and I'm sitting in the boat. And if ideally, I want us to fix it together, because I want us to, you need me, you need my prefrontal cortex, which is working because yours isn't. We are a team. When, married, two become one. My brain's working. Your brain isn't working. Let's work together and fix this hole in the boat. However, if you can't do that because you are literally, your brain is fried and, for whatever reason, you are pushing back really hard, I'm going to get help. And I'm going to get strengthened, and I'm going to get supported, and I'm going to get validated, and I'm going to heal myself from some of the trauma of the continued deception, the trauma of betrayal. And I'm going to start to find the joy in my life again. And then I'm going to reassess my situation. Because once I start to taste that, actually, you know what, I can laugh. I can feel good. I can wake up in the morning and think, okay, life is good. Once you start to taste that, because you feel you've come out of this fog, like something is happening to our relationship. I can't put my finger on it. It feels like it's my fault, but I kind of know it isn't, but yet I kind of feel like it's my job to fix it. He's really angry. No matter what I do, doesn't make any difference. And it's just so devastating. It's so devastating, especially for women who their guys are sexually ignoring them. So we've got guys who become hypersexualized. They're coercing you, they're pressuring you, they're manipulating you into having more sex, more pornographic sex. It's horrible, it's traumatic. And then we've got the other guys who are ignoring you. And so women are going, so hang on, you're looking at pornography, but you've got absolutely no interest in having sex with me?
Exactly.
They are shriveling up. The women they are being destroyed on so many levels, emotionally, spiritually, sexually. All these physiological symptoms, from headaches, insomnia, gastrointestinal issues. You need to address this, not just for the sake of your marriage, not just for the sake of the man that you love, but for your own mental health. You need to start strapping on that oxygen mask and finding help. And there is nothing to be lost by you getting help. And there are so many resources out there, so many more than when I was doing this. And all I want to do is connect you with those resources.
And that is such a big part of what Fight for Love Ministries do. I just want to pause and say, in looking at your material, one of just there's so much goodness there. But your catalog of resources, you've got a bunch there for wives, for husbands, for parents, for couples, at any stage through all of this. It's just a wealth of a place to go to find this help. There's something you say too, Rosie, and that is that most of the time a a wife is the catalyst for her husband dealing with this, for getting help or whatever is needed to deal with pornography. Um, and talk about that for a minute, because I think appropriately, a lot of wives may say, well, he should stop, he should get help. And okay, maybe he should. But just in the order of things, and maybe this is part of what God has equipped wives to do, often it is the wife who is the catalyst.
It is, it's so God, isn't it? How he has, in his wisdom, provided an out for someone who is enslaved through their partner. Yeah. There's always a way out with God. It's not always an easy way out. And my husband is now a certified sexual addictions therapist, and I was asking him, because I pick his brains all the time, what's going on, and I said, what is the main reason why guys come? Do they wake up one morning feeling convicted? Is that how it happens? They just ring up and say, oh, I just really feel I want to kick this. And he goes, no, it's their wife putting her foot down. They arrive with a big footprint in their back of the wife kicking them in the door. And that's my experience. When I said enough, that's when he got into recovery. And from all the wives that I've spoken to, it comes from a desperate ultimatum. So with Fight for Love, what I want to do is stop wives having to do this desperate ultimatum out of this place of utter pain when they're on the verge of a divorce or a nervous breakdown, where they just go, can't cope anymore, get into recovery or I'm going to leave you. Blah. And so I want to avoid that if possible, and actually educate them and empower them and equip them and edify them in order to be able to say, as soon as they sniff that this might be an issue in their marriage, to go, hang on a minute, we might have a hole in the boat because of pornography. I've heard about this. I've read about this. I've listened to the podcast about this. I know that I need to put a boundary down, and I'm going to put a boundary down, and we're going to find help. And we're not going to go through 10, 20, 50 years of miserable cycling, round and round, with you promising to stop and me being brokenhearted and all that. We're going to actually fix it now. So that's my whole mission, early intervention, not crisis management. And when we started, it was like, is it possible? I mean, I did it accidentally. So I did early intervention, day 8 of the marriage, day 8. Can you believe it?
Wow.
Yeah, wow. My parents were not happy. I did it accidentally. So I know it works, but I'm like, can you do that through education? So we started the ministry, did the book, started the podcast, and wives are doing it. Wives are doing it now before they get married. Not wife.
Awesome.
Fiancés are doing it before they walk down the aisle. And there are so many great ministries for guys, yes, where they can go and kick this, and together develop the tools that they're going to need to go forward, because it doesn't disappear. I mean, I part of my role in educating wives is to say that, your husband is not going to never have a lustful thought again. That's just not realistic. However, he will be able to not act on it. That is the goal. You can't stop, the waves coming, the stuff coming, and they do come, but they will have the tools and strategies and resources in place to be able to battle that. And it isn't a constant battle. It's not like you're going to be in that same intense crisis, crazy turbulent time as you are at the beginning. I'm certainly not in it now, but it doesn't mean that he won't, my husband won't turn to me and say, do you know what, I'm struggling today. And we can pray together, because he's brought me into the process. Now at the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that this is a process that you've mentioned honesty, how critical, absolutely critical total honesty is, and that This is a journey husband and wife can continue to walk together. We have a mutual friend, Dr. Julie Slattery. I've heard her say that when she talks with a couple who is struggling in whatever area, she no longer asks if pornography is an issue. She asks what role pornography has been playing in their relationship. It is just, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And you empowering wives with the facts and the faith to face this, that's awesome.
Thank you. And what I haven't mentioned yet, because we've talked a lot about, what we're fighting against and how we fight against it, but what we're fighting for. And the name of our ministry is Fight for Love, because you don't just get your old stinky marriage minus the pornography, because let's face it, that was pretty dysfunctional anyway. What you get is something new with a level of vulnerability, authenticity, trust that you never had before. And unless you've been put through this crucible of recovery where you're forced to both share what's going on for you, he's forced to share, his fears of inadequacy and his, not just lust, but everything that's underneath that, the resentment and everything else that he's been using the porn to medicate. He's forced to share all that. And you're also forced to share how much it's really hurt you and how devastated you are and how frightened you are. And maybe some of your own stuff. I don't know. For me, this recovery process was sort of a gateway to going, oh, wow, I have those issues. Like, okay, maybe I've got a bit of that. Pornography addiction really does traumatize wives. But sometimes we also come in with baggage as well. Sometimes, not always. So it might be an opportunity to fix that. So now you've got people working really hard on their stuff because they're forced to. And you get this incredible new relationship that maybe neither of you experienced in your family of origin, which is pretty cool. And then you can model that for your children.
Thank you for saying that. It's just one part of what I believe Jesus does for all of us. He doesn't only save us from something, he saves us for something. There is a future that is not just getting the old back minus a little bit of junk. It is something truly better and miraculous and beautiful. Like, you, Rosie, and your husband illustrate. I mean, he now being a certified sex addiction therapist, and you having Fight for Love Ministries and working together, helping couples in this. I mean, what a turnaround! What a poke in the eye of the devil, and rallying people to fight for love. Just talk a little bit more about what this fight can do for your marriage, for the intimacy between you, for your children.
Absolutely. Have you read Sheila Ray Gregory's book, The Great Sex Rescue?
Great Sex Rescue. Yeah.
Fantastic resource. And that really puts some flesh on what can happen if you are trying to exist in a marriage and you are believing lies like, if I continue to have sex with him, whenever he wants, he won't feel the urge to look at pornography. That's obligational sex. That's not doing you any favors. That's completely annihilating your own healthy sexuality. So once you start to have those things unpacked, then you start to develop your own sexuality based out of your emotional intimacy, which is incredible. And just the fact that you can really share all the ugly, all the thoughts that you have with someone because he's already shared with you all his ugly and all his thoughts, it's incredibly freeing. And not just in your marriage, but in your relationships. Again, recovery ruins you for shallow friendships. It really does. It's just like, well, this is boring. I know.
Yes.
It really does, because you go, I know you're struggling, because we're all struggling with something, but yet you're not letting me in, and you freak out if I start to hint that I might be struggling with something. So it changes everything, because then you gravitate towards people who have that same need to be authentic and be present with people who are in pain. And that was a gift that came out of it. Now I'm able to be present with people in pain without this urge to fix them.
Yes. Wow.
Well, I'm getting better, to be honest. It's not all fixed, but yeah.
We are all on this journey, and I think it's so beautiful that Jesus continues to walk with us. We've assumed and we've alluded to all through our conversation that Jesus is right in the middle of this, that it's not us out here trying to do it on our own, but he's part of this. But let's just get explicit as we kind of head toward closing here. What does that look like to have Jesus in the middle of this journey in your marriage as you're fighting for love?
Without the grace of Jesus, there is no way we could actually look at the depth of our own depravity. It would annihilate us. We would be on our faces and not able to get up again. But once you understand that none of this is a surprise to God. Yeah. He knows us intimately and he loves us so much, and that he will do for us what we are not able to do for ourselves, that we do have hope, and we have a living hope, a living Savior who can transform us in a way that we can't even imagine. But it all comes back to understanding grace. And once you get that, but you don't get that until you really glimpse your depravity and you realize that you are powerless. I was powerless over my situation. Yes, this was done to me. However, in my situation, not all wives' situation, but in my situation, I had a history that was getting progressively worse in my relational history. There were addicts of one sort or another. And I was powerless over it. In the early days, I remember fantasizing how the next relationship was going to fix everything and it would all be fine. And then I had that moment of realization that it's not going to fix it. Wow. You're the problem. You are the common denominator. And there is nothing you can do to make what you want to happen. You are completely powerless over your dysfunctionality, and you don't know how to get out of this. And that was pretty brutal. And it was just the fact that I was a fairly new Christian at that point as well. So it was all pretty intense. Yes. But I'd had such a powerful sort of conversion experience that I knew it was real. So I could almost see the cross because I knew it was real. And so that gave me something to cling to. Wow. And that's what we need. We need something to cling to in these stages where our marriages are just imploding and it feels like there is no hope. There is no help, and it's just not true. There is hope. There is much, much help out there. And come and find the people who have the faith for you. Just lie on the stretcher and let us lower you down through the roof. We've been there. Let us do that for you. That's our job, and we will lower you down there and let Christ do the business and get you back on your feet.
Powerful, beautiful. Hope building. For those who may be listening, watching, and want to connect with you and fight for love, just invite them. Where can they come? Where can they join you?
Our website is called fightforloveministries.org. The book is called Fight for Love, and the podcast is called Fight for Love. And we also have a private Facebook group for women who are in this position called Fight for Love Fellowship. And that's just a really small baby step that you can do. If you're just not ready to dive into a recovery group, you can just come and lurk and ask questions and hang out with us and see everybody else's beautiful face and go, hang on, all the ladies are really beautiful. What's wrong with their husbands? I think that's a really important healing thing you need to do, is actually see the other women and go, okay, this is really nothing to do with how they look. The husbands are bonkers. It just is. We all do that. Every single wife come in went, just are women, disproportionately more attractive who are married to porn addicts, but it makes no sense.
Yeah. Beautiful, Rosie. And we're going to make sure that the links to those resources are under this video or in the show notes to this podcast. It has been such a delight. And I want to say God bless you as you continue to bring facts and faith to the women who are walking this journey between discovery and recovery, and toward the kind of intimacy and oneness in marriage that Jesus makes available if their husband is willing to walk this journey too. It is such a delight to have you on the program today.
Thank you, Carol. I've really enjoyed chatting with you.
You can take your marriage back from porn. You do not have to allow this destruction to continue in your home. Doesn't mean it's easy. Couples who have walked this journey always tell us it takes time. It is not something that one prayer service or one momentary decision is going to stop the problem. There is a significant journey of hard work that is leading to goodness. Do check out Rosie Makinney's book, Fight for Love, How to Take Your Marriage Back from Porn. The link to that is under this video, fightforloveministries.org, and the link to her Fight for Love podcast. Such rich material. And if you don't do anything else, check out her website and the resources link. Just an enormous vault of resources to help you in this journey. So much goodness. Now, among the things we have available is our Sexpectations course. Men and women, young, old, married, unmarried, this is it's an issue. Now, Sexpectations is dealing with the matters in your heart. If there are things going on in you where sexual stuff is eating at you, then this course is for you. Maybe you have struggled with porn. Maybe you have been sexually wounded in the past, traumatized with abuse, or gotten negative, mixed up messages about sex through your husband's porn use, or even sometimes through religious messages. YourSexpectations.com. The link is also underneath this video. The Sexpectations course allows you to look at your sexual story with honesty and compassion. Invite Jesus into your sexual story, and then write the next chapter with hope. Another very helpful resource if this area of life is a challenge for you, and it is for so many. Thank you for being with me, and until next time, may God bless you.